Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to kind of take a step back and get a kind of a bird's eye view of what we are attempting to do. So in the latest video, we set up a K8s cluster. And in chapter 1, some of the older videos, we were working on code and we were storing that code in Azure DevOps. So our code repository is stored in Azure DevOps. And what we're trying to do now is we are trying to use resources to get our code onto our hardware. So we want to go from code to hardware. And how do we go about doing that, in the sense that how do we go from Azure DevOps to our K8s cluster? And that's kind of where we're going to use Azure Container Registry. We're going to use Azure. And again, the important tool here is a container registry. We're going to use a container registry hosted by Azure to basically what we're going to do is we're going to build from Azure DevOps. We're going to build and we're going to put our image into the Azure Container Registry. And what we're then going to do is we're going to then be able to pull from the Azure Container Registry. We're going to be able to pull that into our K8s cluster. And we can come up with some tools here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use Azure DevOps to build. So we're going to have a build here that will allow us to throw an image and tag into the Azure Container Registry. And from there, we're going to be able to tell the K8s cluster, okay, you're supposed to go and grab that image and tag and run it, host it here. But how are we going to be able to tell them, tell our K8s cluster to do that? Well, we're going to add a build or a deployment trigger that will tell it to then look for the container registry and say, hey, we're going to deploy. So we're going to say, hey, deploy, whatever. We're going to have a deploy trigger of some kind saying, hey, this build is ready. It got put into the Azure Container Registry. We're going to have something that's telling Azure DevOps, hey, kick off a deploy, which in this case, we'll go to our K8s cluster and say, hey, I need you to go look at the container registry and come back with our image and tag here. So we kind of have this almost asynchronous cycle here where we have a build, kickoff, and then something is going to then trigger our deploy. So there's going to be some kind of trigger. So we are going to kind of investigate that. And this is something that I've seen in industry a lot. So we are going to use this design for kind of how we're going to do our CI/CD process, right? So this is kind of our continuous integration, continuous deployment. I think I'm probably going to call this episode that. We're going to just do an overview of that. So in the coming videos, we are going to build out this process and go over the more finer details. And starting in the next episode, we're probably going to look more at the Azure DevOps side and get our build set up so that we can then look at our Azure Container Registry. So we have some work to do. Let's get started on that. Before we can even get to our hosting, we got to figure out how we're going to get things built and set up. We got to get our integration done before we do our deployment. So let's get to it.